In this episode of My Cat's Tale, we're going to meet Sarge and Benny.
My husband wanted an orange cat, and he said, I want to name him Sergeant Pepper. They have orange and white, where the other one has white and orange, which is always very cute. There are times where Sarge will just want to lay down, and Benny nips at his tail, and Sarge is like, oh, leave me alone.
Brooke, tell me about your two. Tell me about Brooke and Sarge.
Sarge is 3 now. Both my boys are orange tabby cats. Sarge is 3 years old. He is mostly orange with a little white face and little white paws. We call him his little white socks. He is just the sweetest boy. We call him a little teddy bear. He just has the biggest heart. He is a mama's boy through and through. He wants to follow me everywhere and be in the bathroom when I'm in the bathroom, or if I sit or lay down on the couch, he runs over so that he can lay next to me or on me. He is the sweetest mama's boy. He's got the biggest heart. Benny is 2 now. He is mostly white with some orange on him, and he's got a little orange nose and face. So it's funny because their faces look like opposite of each other. They have orange and white where the other one has white and orange, which is always very cute. Benny is our little wild boy. He has so much love in his heart. He's the sweetest boy too, but he is a crazy little boy. Even at 2 years old now, he still has that kitten energy. You'll hear sometimes we live in a 2-story house, and sometimes if you're downstairs on the main floor, you'll hear something upstairs that sounds similar to elephants stampeding is what I would call it. And you think to yourself, oh, the boys are chasing each other upstairs. And then I look to my side and Sarge is right there. And so it's just Benny. He's just running around upstairs, running into stuff, knocking stuff over. He's just the silliest guy. He always makes us laugh. But yeah, they are the best boys. My husband and I, we're just obsessed with them. And they have a little sister, a human little sister who's 7 months old now. And she is equally obsessed with them, if not more so than my husband and I are. Within the last month or 2, probably, she has started to notice them, and she watches them play, and she squeals in happiness when they come into the room. She just loves them. So they are definitely worshipped in our house.
Are Sarge and Benny quite protective around your daughter?
Sarge more so than Benny. Sarge was very protective of me when I was pregnant. He would lay on my belly. She would kick him from inside my belly, and he would just purr and purr. He definitely knew that I was pregnant. Benny, I don't think, had any idea. So when we joked that when we brought her home, Sarge acted like, oh yeah, she's here. Okay. And Benny acted like, what is that? Where did it come from? What happened? So Sarge will lay next to her. He tolerates her noises and squeals and yells a lot more. Benny's still a little hesitant around her, but he's getting closer. But yeah, in terms of protectiveness, Sarge will definitely sit a couple feet away and watch her while she plays and stuff, just kind of watch over her. But he did the same thing with Benny when Benny came home when he was a kitten. So he's definitely got that big brother energy.
That maternal instinct, and then, cats can be unpredictable sometimes. How does it feel watching Sarge and Benny watching over your daughter?
Oh, it's the greatest thing in the world. It just melts my heart every single time they interact. I knew when I was pregnant, my husband and I talked constantly about how excited we were for obviously us to meet her, but then for the boys to meet her. And to see what it would be like, and we would daydream out loud about what it was going to be like and things that they would do together. And now to see that as a reality and see them interact with her and her get excited to see them. Like I wish I haven't been able to get it on video to even post on Twitter or anything, but when she's sitting on the floor playing and one of them walks into the room, the happy squeal that comes out of her is like, oh my gosh, my brother. And then when she sees both of them, it's like the greatest day of her life. So yeah, I can't even describe the way it's the greatest thing. It's exactly what I hoped for and dreamed of.
I want to go back a little bit. Where did Sarge and Benny's names come from? Because Sarge is, is it from a military background? Obviously has that sort of air to it, but is there something else behind it?
Yeah, actually, they are both music references. So Sarge's full name is Sergeant Peppers from the Beatles.
Don't tell me Benny's yet. I'm going to have a guess on that. But yeah, sorry, Mr. Pepper.
Sure, I'll go through Sarge first. So my husband picked out Sergeant Peppers even before we found Sarge, actually. We were thinking about a cat and looking for a cat. Generally, for me, was the idea was I wanted a cat, and he had never had a cat before. He grew up with dogs, so he was like, it'll be your cat, blah, blah, blah. He's now obsessed with both the boys.
Yeah.
He wanted an orange cat, and he said, I want to name him Sergeant Peppers. Because at the time, he's a big music buff. He's in a band, a hobby band, and he was really getting into the Beatles, like obsessively at the time. That's all he could listen to, and he was watching every documentary, and so he was like, I want to name our cat Sergeant Peppers. So that's where that kind of came from. And I won't tell you Benny's yet, but when we were getting Benny, we found him first before we decided on a name. And he, there was about a week period between when we found him and when we got to bring him home. And so we had a week to decide on a name. And we knew we wanted something that ended with a Y because he was so small and just the sweetest little guy. And we were like, we almost want to name him Baby because he looks like a baby, but we didn't want to name him Baby. So we were like, we need something that ends in a Y or that E sound. So we were brainstorming, but we also wanted to stay in the music theme. So do you have a guess?
Well, I've got two. I had an immediate guess, and now I'm trying to second guess myself. So the one I don't think
it is short for something, if that helps. That's a hint.
That might rule it out, because the one I'm pretty sure it's not, but I like the idea of it, is Benny Anderson from ABBA. But I don't think it's going to be that.
Not that one.
It's not. My immediate reaction was Benny Goodman.
Nope.
I don't know.
All right, it is a hard one. So the lead singer of Linkin Park, who passed away a few years ago from suicide, unfortunately, his name was Chester Bennington. So his name is Bennington.
And that's where that comes from there.
Yeah. And we named him that to have that, Linkin Park's a band we both loved our entire lives. And we both loved Chester Bennington. And we liked the idea of having a longer name to have, something short for it. But we had that E sound at the end of Benny, which, funny enough, we have called him Benny maybe 10 times since we adopted him. He is Beanie to us. We call him Beanie, Bean, because when you look at him, this is how we feel. He's a little bean. You can't help but call him anything but Bean. It fits him perfectly. So we call him Beanie, Bean, Beanington. Both boys have a million nicknames. We don't call Sarge either.
Who is he?
His nicknames have evolved over time. So it started the first 6 months to a year that we had him. We called him Baby Cat. I started calling him that like the day that he came home. He was Baby Cat on Twitter under his account, where it was something along the lines of, my mom says I'm a baby, but he spelled it Babbi. And my husband pronounced it, when he read the tweet out loud, Babby. So we called him Babby for a year or so. So he's Babby, Baba, basically whatever noise comes out of your mouth. And then his longest nickname now, and the one that I feel like fits him the most, is he's Bubba.
Okay.
He's just this sweet, cuddly boy, and he's my Bubba.
So I can see that there's an age difference between the two of them.
Yep.
Did you get them within? No, you didn't. You wouldn't have got them with an age difference because you would have got Sarge and then Benny. So
Yes.
Was there always going to be a second cat?
No, there wasn't. So like I kind of hinted to before, my husband wasn't really into the idea of a cat, which he was the one who brought it up, actually. At the time, I mentioned he has a hobby band. He was recording an album in the studio with his band. They did for fun, paid out of their own pocket to do that. And so he was gone a lot. We were both working in the office at the time. This was early 2019. And so he was gone a lot of nights, and I was home alone in our apartment and lonely. And I mentioned, we had always talked about getting a dog. He grew up with dogs his whole life. I had a dog at the time that, I had from age like 14 to 21 or whenever she passed away. So we were dead set on getting a dog in our minds. But at the time, we lived in an apartment on the 4th floor, and we worked in the office full time, both of us. And so we talked about it, and we were like, that's not fair to a dog to live this life, being home for 9 hours a day by themselves, and then, not having a yard to run around in. It just, our lifestyle didn't fit a dog at the time. And so he brought it up. He was like, well, what would you think about a cat if I agreed to a cat? I was all for it because I love cats. I also had some cats growing up. And like I mentioned, he was like, oh, well, it'll be your cat and I want to name it, but then whatever, it'll be your cat. So once we got Sarge, he immediately fell in love with him day of, was, obsessed with him, still is. And then we moved into the house we live in now in June 2020. So right in the middle of everything being shut down.
Yeah.
And we were both working from home, which was new to both of us. And Sarge had this whole house to roam around in, which to him was a huge house. It's not a very big house, but compared to our 1-bedroom apartment, it was huge, And so he had all this space that he wasn't used to, and both of his parents home, which he was so excited about. And he would bug us all day long to play. He'd be in, we'd both be on calls, and he'd be trying to get us to play. And I went to my husband one day and I said, I really think he needs a companion. He needs someone, because at the time in our heads, we're like, well, soon we'll be going back into the office.
Yeah.
Funny enough, 2.5 years later now, we're both working from home full time still. But in our heads, and that was one of the things I mentioned to him, was like, at some point, probably soon, we're going to go back into the office and he's going to be here by himself. And he was like, no, I don't want another cat. And so I just left and I let him sit on it. And I think it was that night he was like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's think about it. He heard me out, and I think he sat with it and was like, then we got Benny.
You said that you reckoned he needed a companion.
Yes.
What did Sarge think?
I think if Sarge could go back in time, he would tell me, no, Mom, I want to be an only child.
So it sounds like there were some hijinks involved then.
Yes. They get along well, for sure. They are not the type of cats that cuddle with each other. I wouldn't say that they're inseparable, but they do play together for hours a day. They take turns chasing each other. They both go up and initiate playtime. They spend a lot of time in the same room with each other. There have been 1 or 2 times that I've taken one to the vet without the other, which usually I try to schedule them at the same time. But whenever one of them is gone, the other one's like, where's my brother? So they definitely do enjoy each other. They get along. But the only issue, when I use that term lightly, is that, like I mentioned, Sarge is very docile. He's very relaxed. Benny is very high energy. And so there are times where Sarge will just want to lay down and sleep or just rest. And Benny comes up and he nips at his tail or he nips at his foot or something, trying to get him to play, you know? And Sarge is like, oh, leave me alone. And so there is that like little brother, big brother, you know? But generally, I do think, jokes aside, I do think that Sarge has enjoyed having another cat here. And I think it has been really good for both of them to have a companion.
And how's your husband now with two cats?
Oh, he's obsessed with them. Benny is, I mentioned Sarge is a mama's boy. Benny is a daddy's boy. He is obsessed with my husband. He always wants to be with dad. If dad's office door is closed while he's working, he will sit outside the office door and cry, or just sleep right outside the door until he opens it to let him in. He is obsessed with his dad, and my husband is equally obsessed with both of the boys. They are his life.
So what are their lives like now? No, we're back to the cats again, by the way.
Yeah. A typical day, I'd say, we're both working. They spend some time playing in the morning. They'll run around the house like crazy. They both have individual time with my husband that they have special things they do. So Benny really likes to get back rubs and pets while he eats out of his food bowl. So he will yell at you, yowl at you until you follow him to his food bowl for him to pet, or for you to pet his back while he eats. Sarge really likes to get pets on top of our dryer, which is interesting. So he will sit in front of the doors that we have to our laundry and meow at you until you open them up so that he can jump up on the dryer and get pets. So that is part of their routine in the morning. They do it with my husband while he eats breakfast. They play, and then they sleep most of the day. And sometimes they'll both sleep in the living room, or one of them will sleep. Sarge usually sleeps on the couch downstairs, and Benny sleeps in the cat tree in our bedroom or outside of my husband's office or in his office with him. And then, they eat dinner, they play a lot more. We usually play with them. And then they settle down for bedtime. They've got their highs and lows. I feel like they're extremes. Like they're either sleeping and relaxing or they're playing and being wild.
But they do sound completely settled with everybody in the house. You all sound settled.
Yes. Yeah. We're definitely settled. We're very happy here. We're definitely in a routine and they're great. They're happy here for sure.
Did that routine change when your daughter came around?
I think it did for a bit, but we've settled back down into basically the same routine. So I think for a little bit, my husband and I, our lives changed dramatically when she was born. And there was some time where, things were different. I wasn't working. I had like 4 months off work. My husband took 3 weeks off. So, we were around a lot more. We were not working. But even then we stayed inside. Most of the time it was winter when she was born. And, with COVID still around, we didn't go out and do a bunch of things with the newborn. So we spent a lot of time just at home relaxing. And I think what really helped us when it comes to the cats, I think what really helped us is we let them set their own boundaries. So something that was very important to us was making sure that we weren't forcing them to get close to her or forcing them to be near her or in the same room or anything like that. We brought her home in her car seat. We set her down in the living room and we let them come up and smell her if they chose to, which they both did. And then they both walked away and we let them go, and Benny, especially, like I said, he's still a little hesitant around her. And he definitely was in those first few days. He spent a lot of time sleeping on top of our kitchen cabinet. which is a place that he normally doesn't go. Sarge does. Actually, Sarge likes to go up there. But Benny spent a lot of time sleeping up there. And I think that was kind of a place where he felt safe.
I'm guessing it's like quite high up and quite an
Very
enclosed space.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it was normally pretty dark up there and quieter and high up, like you mentioned. So we never forced him to come down. We would go in there and talk to him and pet him, but which he enjoyed. But we never forced him to do anything. And we also tried to make sure that they got their own time where we played with them separately away from their baby sister, or gave them treats once she went to bed, things like that to try and keep them happy. And they settled very nicely in with her. They adapted quickly and pretty easily, I think.
I'm interested, you said their baby sister. Does it feel like you have 3 smaller people living with the 2 of you?
Oh yeah, that's what we consider. We consider them all our children. They are our sons, and they're our babies. We think of them all as our babies for sure.
We seem to be bouncing around the sort of timeline that they have here, but why don't we just go right back? We talked earlier about why you decided to bring them into your life. How did you decide to bring Sarge and Benny into your life?
Like I mentioned with Sarge, we talked through it. We were like, let's think about a cat. So there was a Saturday where we were trying to find something to do. The weather was really nice. We ended up at Petco, where we knew that a local shelter, a local rescue, has like Saturday adoption events there. And I feel like this is how how I got my cat or how I got my dog story starts, where it's like, we were just going to look. We were not intending to bring anything home. And we saw this tiny orange cat who was sprawled out in the cage he was in over top of the other kittens. He was laying on top of the other kittens, even though there was plenty of room. It was a big cage and there was only like 3 or 4 kittens in there. He was laying on top of the other kittens, sprawled out, and we were like, we want to see that one. So we pulled him out and we got to sit down with his foster mom and play with him and pet him and hold him for probably 15, 20 minutes. It was quite a long time. We got to talk to her about how he ended up with her and his temperament and all that. She said he was very shy, and we could tell that. He was a little shy, but he was totally open to us. He was letting us pet him and hold him, and but he was pretty timid. And we decided very quickly. We handed him back to the foster mom. We said, all right, we're going to go kind of walk around the store and talk about it. We took a few steps away, and my husband said, I want that cat. And I started crying, and I said, I can't leave here without him. We'd already fallen in love with him. And we brought him home that afternoon, and he hid under the couch for about an hour, maybe a half an hour even. And we were totally, again, kind of like with when we brought my daughter home, we were totally open to letting him do his own thing. I told my husband, because like I mentioned, he had never had cats before. I said, he may hide for a week straight and only come out when we're sleeping. 30 minutes to an hour later, he was out. He was playing with us. And maybe 2 to 3 hours later, he was asleep in my lap. And I sent a picture to his foster mom and I said, look at this. Because like I said, she said he was the shyest of the group that she had. And she was like, he must know that you're his parents. He must know that he's home now. So he settled in so quickly and just has been our little boy ever since.
And with Benny, you said you'd taken time to think about the decision, but was it the same sort of snap recognition?
Yes, but a little bit differently. So when we decided to get another cat, we decided to start by reaching out to Sarge's foster mom, and who we'd stayed in contact with, and asking her for some recommendations on where to start. And if she thought, she didn't have Sarge very long, but she did have him with his sister and brother. There were three of them. And so I said, how did he do around the other cats? How did you think that it would be good for him? I kind of explained what he was doing with trying to get our attention throughout the day. I said, do you think it would be good for him to get another cat? I sent her an email, and we were just trying to start there, kind of some fact finding. She responded, and she is one of the kindest people ever. We're so lucky to know her and to have gotten Sarge from her. And she responded and gave me a really good explanation of, she didn't have him very long, but he did really seem to enjoy hanging out with his brother. She said, from what I explained, it did sound like it would be good for him to have another cat in the house. And she said, I actually have a litter right now. There's a little orange and white boy. I think he was 10 weeks old at the time. And she said, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I can't lie, he is my favorite. She said, he's so fun. He always has us laughing and smiling. And she said, he is just full of life. And I think he would be perfect for your family. So I read that to my husband, and I hadn't mentioned to her in my initial email that we were looking for another orange boy. But my husband and I had already talked about it. We were like, we want another orange boy. So I said, seems pretty meant to be. And my husband said, ask her for a picture. So she sent us pictures. And if you haven't gotten the trend yet that I'm an emotional person, I saw these pictures and immediately burst into tears. And I said, that's our boy.
Did you still see that mirroring then? The orange where the white wasn't a white where the orange was between the two of them?
A little bit, I think we noticed, but not as much. I think it's kind of shown more as they've gotten older. But I emailed her back and I said, we're very interested in him. Can we meet him? What's the protocol? So at the time he hadn't gotten tested for FIV and, gotten his shots yet and stuff. So we went and we met him. We actually met at the same Petco that we got Sarge from. And we met him, we held him, fell absolutely in love with him. He was purring the second I picked him up, just the sweetest little boy. And we had to wait that long, grueling week. That's how it felt until we could bring him home. We got him the next weekend. We brought him home, and the rest is history. We just absolutely love both of them like crazy.
History is always a wonderful word for these stories, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. The tales, the family, the history, and the huge amount of love that can sit inside a house that has cats.
Yep, definitely. The love they bring into our lives.
And I got to really thank you, Brooke, for sharing that love with us here on My Cat's Tale.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking about my boys, if you can't tell. Sarge is at Sarge_the_kitty on Twitter. And Benny is similar, Benny_the_kitty on Twitter. And both of them have an Instagram together. It's Sarge and Benny.
And we will have links to those sites back at our site, so it's very easy to find them, mycatstailpod.com. Brooke, it's been a pleasure to hear about Sarge and Benny and all your family. Thanks again for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to My Cat's Tale, a Spence Media production. Listen to more tales of our perfect pets at mycatstailpod.com and support us on Patreon.